I will say they almost got me again when Roxanne was standing in the turnbuckle and celebrating and just kind of just soaking in her victory. I was like, okay, are they really just not gonna is Giulia not gonna show up? And then all of a sudden the lights go out and there was a spotlight in the back, kind of towards like the behind Roxanne as she was positioned in the turnbuckle, and I was like, oh shit, here we go. And sure enough, the music. Let's start with the music and the smoke. Beautifully done. Like the entrance itself was so well done. I think that they can add to it as they go along, but I think that man, like the initial presentation was just spot on. And I love that they were in a big arena for it. I love that they weren't in the performance center because obviously optically it's nice to have someone of Julia's stature debut in a bigger arena. So I love that. And I think that was a very good move there. What's up? We have Misfit Wrestling Podcast in the chat. Shout out to you guys. I'll have to check you guys out. They say Roxanne is very good at this thing called pro wrestling cinema. Couldn't agree with you guys more. Back in the Roxy days, man, I was hopeful that she was gonna end up on NXT. Again, no shot at AEW or anything, but she was one of those talents where I really wanted WWE to get under her belt. And yes, there's a thing to be said with only learning the WWE style, but she doesn't. Like she has already gotten a lot of experience under her belt outside of any type of training performance center. So her just coming in here and honing her craft and learning how to be on TV, national, weekly televised TV, PLEs and things like that. I think the sky's the limit to her. And who's to say Roxanne doesn't stay with WWE for 5, 6, 7 years and doesn't end up going to an AEW after that to test the waters or and then coming back? Who knows? I think that's the fun thing about wrestling too. Like you don't have to stay at one promotion at one on one brand for that matter. You have flexibility, and especially nowadays with more forbidden doors, which I hate, but all that being more and more okay and accessible and not shunned upon, and companies acknowledging other companies exist. I think it's a beautiful thing. Got another comment from Misfit Wrestling. They said Triple H already gaslighting his future WrestleMania main eventer. I love it. Yeah. I'm sure he probably said something on Twitter. I haven't seen it yet. They also say, from everything we've heard, WWE aren't planning to change anything about Giulia. It's now, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Absolutely, man. I'm sorry, man. If you're a female, I just call everyone man, do it, whatever. So no offense, Hope. But yeah, like I think that was like some concerns that she had coming into it that she was going to have to change her name. I fucking love that she didn't. I love that it's spelled the same way and it's not a corny ass like American version of it, like Julia or anything dumb like that. No, her name is Giulia. It's spelled the way it's spelled. She is who she is. She looks the way she looks. Her presence is built into her. Today I kind of went on like a little binge just watching some of her matches in Stardom and stuff. And especially like if you guys haven't seen her match against Mariah May, they had a crazy as it sounds, and of all the things that Julia is good at in the ring, I don't know why this one stood out to me, but the slaps that they hit each other with were just fucking brutal. Like I was like, yo, like what's that shit UFC used to do? Or it still does. Or not UFC specifically, but Dana White, like the slap. I don't know. I don't know what it's called, but I was like, God, like y'all are crazy. But then of course the match with her and Willow Nightingale, I watched right before the pay per view tonight. It's and that match too. I think they ended up getting like 13 minutes or so. Her and Willow. Again, just a wonderful match, and I think Giulia is really gonna bring a different layer to the NXT division, almost like an Asuka. And again, not to be funny or anything like that, but the sense that she's gonna come in at a point where a lot of movement is going on, and they really need a solid player. Yes, Roxanne is that solid player, but Roxanne needs a foil, and Roxanne needs someone to go off of. And Giulia is, you want to talk about like a good opponent? That's understatement of the year. Like she is the prime opponent for our Roxanne Perez, and I can't wait to see the story that they're going to tell. And again, that was another reason why I wanted to see Roxanne come over here, and now Giulia and Stephanie, Vaquer, and all of them, because again, as crazy as it sounds, if this was 2 years ago, who may not be saying this, but I want to see what stories we get out of them. I want to see their character development. I want to see what they can present. And I love that. Yes, Julia is good at English, but I love that we're going to get some choppiness, and we're obviously going to get the accent and things like that. And I love the eventual feuds that we're going to be getting: her versus Io Sky, her versus Asuka. Like, can you imagine that? That's definitely going to be a WrestleMania match at some point. Like, can you imagine? Um, and I think also you have a cool opportunity possibly to, depending on when they end up bringing Stephanie Vaquer in, you can have her and Stephanie kind of running and kind of going on their own warpath and carving their own paths in separate lanes and go different routes, but then in a couple years from now end up meeting together in a sense of like a Bianca Belair and a Rhea Ripley. Obviously, right now Rhea Ripley is a little bit more mainstream, a little bit higher on the card than Bianca Belair. But I think if you give Bianca just enough attention and just a little more primer and more focus, I think that you can get her back in the singles main event picture like she was back in, what was it, WrestleMania, was it 38? With her and Bianca Belair, I think. And they had that match at WrestleMania. But that was a really groundbreaking moment for her, and of course she's continued since then. But I think it's it's very vital for WWE to be bringing in this influx of talent. And I just said on a previous show, the tag division and the women's division are the two divisions that really need to be focused on, in my opinion, more. And I think this is obviously a step in the right direction. All right, let's see what you else have to say. And thanks for the comments, Mr. Wrestling. I appreciate you. I'll definitely be subscribing to you guys after I get off here. You say Roxanne has been working stiff for Giulia. Yeah, no surprise there. Stardom teases with Giulia versus Kyrie, and now we can have it. Oh yeah, in WWE. Golly, like, can you imagine? Like, I take my money now. Like, I'm here for it. And Julia's already tweeted, "I'm here to see you, Roxanne." Yeah, let's fucking go. Let the games begin. And this plays into what I was just saying. You think Stephanie is going after Kaylani? That would be perfect. Have Stephanie going after, and no shame or slight on Stephanie Vaquer, but I think if you were to compare, not even compare the two because I hate that word, but Giulia has the bigger name right now. So I think that you want to have her in the main event picture, whereas you can have your Stephanie Vaquer going after the North American Championship and really building her, like I said, her own lane and doing her own thing and keeping them away from each other as long as possible and not having them interact. Maybe you can have them like face to face briefly, but I wouldn't have them touch, do nothing, challenge each other, nothing like that until you're absolutely ready for them to face, whether that's going to be in NXT or if you're going to hold it off longer into the main roster. I think you could really, really get something long term out of both of them. But yeah, back to Giulia actually making her debut. Like I said, the music that they had was perfect for her. I love the smoke fog feel, the lights being out, her creepy nature, her creepy kind of walk, and just her. And again, you guys got to go back and watch it, obviously, but the way she exuded her confidence, but wasn't cocky, stood her ground, made it known why she was there, but didn't say a word, and having Roxanne, and shout out to Roxanne as well. I love the height difference too. But shout out to Roxanne for selling it on her face and not going overboard, not being like this cartoonish scared heel that's gonna like be a chicken shit heel and run away. And even if she ends up doing that, she didn't portray that. She held up her title. She showed concern in her face, which she obviously should and is believable. She held up the title, and they ended up, at least on my feed, I don't have like the premium or whatever, but at least on my feed, they just faded out and then went to an ad. So I don't know what happened after that. But man, it was a perfect setup, a perfect way to introduce Giulia, and I think that the follow up is going to be the key. But I'm not even worried about the follow up for this. Like I said, I'm just it was something so main or so minor rather. But I love the presentation for her, and I love that they're keeping her. They're keeping the name the same. They're keeping her the same, and it looks like it's just going to be smooth sailing from here, and I'm very happy for that. And it's a sign of the times changing again in WWE, because as we have seen in the past, and I'll throw the visual up here. So if you guys haven't seen, I'm not going to play the clip because I did at one point and almost got in trouble, copyrights. But yes, here is the lasting visual of Giulia making her debut against Roxanne Perez. And again, this is obviously a still shot, but I'm just so fucking here for it, guys. I think that Giulia is really going to just light a fire in the division. Not that, even to be fair, not that the NXT women's division needed it, because again, say what you want about NXT, but they have a solid women's division, and a division that you could really put up against a lot of other locker rooms, in my opinion. So the fact that they got her is a coup. So I'm very happy for them. I'm happy for Giulia. I'm happy for Roxanne. And the sky's the limit for them, in my opinion.